You are watching AI Storytelling, YTS.
Some stories slip between reality and nightmare. They aren't myths passed down for centuries. They're warnings, broadcast in static, whispered through televisions, or found in tapes that should never exist. Tonight, we explore a tale that blends the real and the unreal. A chilling descent into the strange phenomenon known as the Mandela Catalogue, and the horrifying events that unfolded in one small town. Don't forget to subscribe to AI Storytelling YTS. It's free and gives us motivation to bring more spine-chilling horror stories for you. It began not with a ghost, not with shadows or strange shapes in the night. It began with a voice. The first 911 call came on a Tuesday night. The operator, a woman named Melissa, described the line as unnatural. At first, she thought her headset was broken. The sound wasn't a person breathing. It was static. Sharp, electric static that hissed like the line itself was alive. And then, buried under the noise, she heard words.
He looks like me, but he isn't me.
A caller ID traced back to a home on the edge of town. A home where, just hours before, a family of 3 had vanished without a trace. Melissa reported the call. But when officers visited the address, the house was empty. Dinner still on the table. The front door unlocked. And upstairs, all the mirrors were turned to face the walls. Within days, more calls followed. Operators described voices overlapping. 2 or 3 people speaking at once, words cutting in and out, like multiple tapes playing together. Some begged for help, others laughed, and always the same phrase. They are not who they seem. The calls would last for only a few seconds before dropping back into dead air. And yet, every number traced back to missing residents. Police called it a prank. But the operators swore the voices didn't sound human. The tone was wrong. The rhythm was wrong. And when they replayed the recordings, they noticed something far more disturbing. The words weren't just distorted. They were layered. Underneath the main voice, buried in the static, was a second voice, whispering the same sentence, but half a second out of sync. As if 2 beings were speaking from the same mouth. By the end of the month, 23 calls had been logged. All of them from homes tied to missing families. The police refused to escalate. They dismissed it as mass hysteria. But the operators, the ones who answered those calls, they knew. Because each time the line went dead, they swore they could still hear the caller's voice. Not through the headset, not through the phone, but whispering directly behind them.
Why did you hurt them? Insane.
In June, the town's televisions began to change. It started small, picture tubes flickering, channels cutting out, screens that refused to shut off even when unplugged. Families joked about bad wiring. But on the night of June 14th, the joke ended. At 11:42 p.m., programming on every television abruptly stopped. The familiar test tone of the emergency alert system filled the air. But this was no weather warning, no Amber Alert. The words that appeared across the screen were wrong, fragmented, as though the message wasn't written by human hands. Those who saw it swore the letters bent and warped as they read. Some said the text breathed, swelling on the screen like lungs. Others insisted the words shifted if you looked away, rearranging into something new the second you blinked.
Do not engage. Do not engage.
The broadcast lasted only 90 seconds. By the time authorities were contacted, the feed had already returned to normal programming. The government denied issuing the alert. The television stations denied it as well. And yet, nearly the entire town witnessed it. Panic spread like wildfire. Families pushed furniture against their doors. Curtains were nailed shut. Fathers smashed their televisions with hammers. One woman, Mrs. Harlan, swore she could still hear the broadcast even after she destroyed her TV. A constant whisper behind her ears, telling her to lock every mirror, every reflective surface, or they would come through. Others reported something even stranger. For some, their screens never showed words at all. Instead, a face appeared. A human face. Pale, blurred, smiling too wide. It never spoke, never moved, just stared directly through the glass. And then, their screens went black. In the weeks that followed, more families vanished. Doors left unlocked. Meals abandoned on tables. Neighbors whispered that they'd seen figures walking through the streets late at night. Pale imitations of people they knew. Husbands, wives, children. They walked wrong. Too stiff, too slow. As though the faces were masks, stretched across something else.
They are not who they seem. Not who they seem.
The broadcast was never acknowledged by any authority. But the warning it left behind would echo in the minds of survivors for the rest of their lives. Remain indoors. Do not trust beings that appear human. They are not. After the broadcast, the town began to change. It wasn't just the televisions, it was the mirrors. Residents reported strange behaviors when they looked at their reflections. Some claimed their reflections blinked just a second too late. Others swore they saw themselves smile, though their own mouths never moved. It was subtle at first, easy to dismiss. But soon, entire families stopped using mirrors. They covered them with blankets, turned them to face the wall. Because once you noticed, you couldn't unsee it. One teenager, Alex Carter, documented his experience with a VHS camcorder. The tape was later recovered in his empty home. At first, the footage shows Alex filming himself in his bedroom mirror. His reflection stares back normally, but after a few seconds, it begins to lag. His reflection blinks late, tilts its head the wrong way. And then, as Alex nervously looks at the camera, his reflection does something he does not. It smiles. Wide, unnaturally wide. And though Alex is silent in the room, the recording picks up his own voice, whispering off screen, "That isn't me." Psychologists later compared these reports to a real disorder, Capgras delusion, a rare condition where patients believe their loved ones, or even themselves, have been replaced by imposters. But what baffled experts was that nearly 36 residents reported the same phenomenon at the same time. It wasn't one patient. It was an entire town. Neighbors described people standing before mirrors for hours, staring, unblinking. Some said their reflections moved a second before they did. Others whispered that they heard voices, not from behind them, but inside the glass. One boy refused to sleep in his room. He told his mother the mirror kept whispering his name. By the end of July, smashed mirrors littered the streets. And yet, the whispers continued. The Carter family was among the last seen together. Days before their disappearance, Alex's mother told a neighbor she no longer trusted her son. "He looks like Alex," she said, "but he doesn't move like him. And when he smiles, it isn't his smile." The next morning, the house was empty. Alex's camcorder was the only thing left behind. And that tape ends with a single frame. Alex's face, grinning, frozen, his eyes locked on the lens, as his real voice whispers from the dark, "That isn't me." By mid-August, the phenomenon had reached a breaking point. A single family, the Hargraves, begged for help. Their youngest son, Thomas, no longer seemed like himself. Neighbors described him standing motionless for hours, staring at walls. Sometimes he would speak, but his words didn't match his lips. And then he laughed. Not the normal laughter of a child. Two voices laughing at once. One high, frightened. The other deep, cold, inhuman. The Hargraves contacted Father Donovan, a priest from the neighboring town. He had never encountered anything like it in his decades of service. When he arrived, the boy was sitting perfectly still in the center of the living room. Candlelight danced across his face, and yet his eyes did not reflect the light. The priest attempted a blessing. He sprinkled holy water. He read prayers aloud, but each word seemed swallowed by the air, until the boy spoke in two voices simultaneously. "You cannot stop us. We are already here." The priest's camcorder captured everything, or perhaps it distorted everything. The boy's laughter shifted into words the priest could not understand. Sometimes the camera would glitch, showing two Thomases in the frame, one real, one mirrored, smiling unnaturally wide. Father Donovan fled that night, leaving the family behind. His notes were later recovered, scribbled with warnings. Do not trust the faces. They are not what they seem. The boy is gone, or he never was. Neighbors reported hearing the Hargraves' house at night, doors slamming, furniture moving, whispers echoing down the streets. But no one dared enter. Weeks later, when authorities investigated, the house was empty. The only evidence left behind, the priest's camera tape. On it, Thomas sits alone in the dark, grinning, staring at the lens. Then, he slowly raises his hand and points directly at the camera. And in a voice that is no longer human, he whispers, "That isn't me." The Hargraves were never seen again. Their neighbors moved away, leaving the house to rot. But some swear, when passing by, they can still hear laughter echoing from inside. Not one voice, but two or more. And when the windows fog up, shapes appear, faces pressed against the glass, smiling in ways no human should smile. By October, half the town had vanished. Homes were abandoned mid-meal, doors left unlocked, curtains torn down, mirrors smashed. The town looked like it had been emptied overnight, but the silence was not natural. It was heavy, suffocating, the kind of silence that seems to watch you. Those who remained swore they could see them. Figures moving in the shadows, pale imitations of the neighbors who had vanished, people they had known all their lives. But the movement was wrong, stiff, jerky, inhuman, and the faces were too wide, too still. Smiles stretched unnaturally across skin that was almost translucent. And if you dared look too closely, the eyes didn't belong to the person they once knew. The last piece of evidence came from Alex's camcorder, found abandoned in a house on the edge of town. The tape had no rewind, no instructions, just one long, continuous recording. The footage begins with a view of a darkened room. Dust motes float in the air, illuminated by moonlight. And there, sitting perfectly still, is Alex. He faces the camera, his expression neutral. And then, slowly, unnaturally, his lips curl into a wide, frozen smile. From the darkness, a voice speaks. Not Alex's voice, but something else. Deeper, colder, layered over his own. "That isn't me. The town is empty now. No police, no neighbors, no explanation. But the evidence remains. The VHS tapes, the destroyed mirrors, the memories of those who fled, all pointing to the same chilling reality. The people who left may have been replaced. The reflections that remain may not belong to anyone at all. And in that emptiness, one question lingers. Who is still looking back at you from the glass? And when you hear a familiar voice in the dead of night, is it really them? Or something else entirely? Some dismiss this story as an urban legend, a glitch in technology, mass hysteria, a rare psychiatric disorder. But for those who lived through it, for those who saw the tapes, it was real. It is still real. The town remains abandoned. The families vanished. The houses decayed. Mirrors smashed. Televisions destroyed. Yet the evidence persists. Tapes, cameras, whispers in the dark, reminders that what we see may not be what we think. That reflection in the mirror may not be your own. That voice calling your name at night may not belong to anyone you know. So, the next time your screen flickers, the next time your reflection lingers too long, do not reach for it. Do not speak. Do not trust the faces. Somewhere, in the empty houses, in the static of abandoned televisions, they are waiting, watching, smiling, and perhaps, when you look too closely, they will see you. Remember, remain inside. If you want more spine-chilling stories, subscribe to AI Storytelling, YTS, and join us for more scary video every week.